I was about 60 miles off the coast of West Australia, and my boat was sinking. And I had my girlfriend with me at the time. I looked across at her, and it just broke my heart open that I'd actually cost her her life. And in that moment, I felt this unconditional love that I'd never felt before. And it was just so beautiful. I realized that the armor that I'd put on to become a successful businessman was now in the way of me experiencing love.
Welcome to From Fear to Fire, Secrets to Overcome Fear, Embrace Your Gifts, and Achieve Success. This is the place where real people share real challenges and where you can find a common bond and uncommon wisdom through their journeys to help you move from fear to fire. I am your host, Heather Hanson O'Neill. We have an incredible guest for you today. Our quote is actually oddly by Tim McGraw. We all take different paths in life, but no matter where we go, we take a little of each other everywhere. Today we have Vishrant, who is a contemporary mystic and enlightened spiritual teacher from Perth, Australia, a former publishing magnate who retired at 28. He turned toward the spiritual path after experiencing a life-changing near-death event at sea. His journey led him to give away his businesses and walk barefoot across Australia for 4 years. Vishrant now guides others toward awakening through direct experience, presence, and surrender. Welcome, Vishrant. How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So, you've had an extraordinary journey from gang leader to mystic. I think we're going to need a little bit more of that journey from you.
Okay.
What was the turning point? Can you share about it?
Okay, so when I was a boy, I was a diver because my grandparents lived in Bunbury and I used to stay with them on holidays. And I began snorkeling and diving, and I found that I loved it. I absolutely loved it and fell in love with the ocean, fell in love with the things I could see underwater. But then when I turned about 10 or 11, I took a diving course to use scuba tanks. And my teacher, at about the same year, died from being eaten by sharks.
Oh my.
His boat tipped over and they found the floats with all these sharks' teeth in them. And unfortunately, he was gone. But I went to a show. It was called the Royal Show in Perth. And at the show, at the police exhibition, it had the pictures of the boat that had been capsized, the boat and the buoys that had all the sharks' teeth in it. And it just terrified me. I got traumatized because my friend and my teacher, diving teacher, had died by being eaten by sharks. So from then on, every time I went in the water, I was scared of sharks. And so that would stop me in the beginning from diving because I'd just be too frightened. But what I discovered is if I, in my imagination, allowed the sharks to maul me and kill me before I got in the water, it destroyed the fear. And so before I'd get in the water, I'd allow the sharks in my mind to get me. So I wasn't running away from them anymore. I wasn't trying to hide from them. And I was diving in water that was full of sharks. So it wasn't that I wasn't actually in danger, I was, but I didn't want the fear of being eaten by a shark or mauled by a shark to stop me from diving. And so I didn't. And ever since then, I have had a way with fear where instead of serving it, instead of allowing it, walking towards it and making it okay. And if the worst was going to occur, well, then I'd make that okay too. And so it went on further because at the time I started training in Kung Fu. And Kung Fu is a relatively dangerous sport because in full contact Kung Fu, you can get hurt. You can even get killed. And so before I'd go into a fight, and this is from about 12, 13, 14 onwards, I would allow myself to die. I'd allow myself to be killed in the fight. And that killed the fear. It just stopped it dead, which allowed me to be a much better fighter. And so fear, I learned that fear was something not to be served, but something to be made okay with. Because I think as a servant of fear, you don't go, you don't say, you don't do. It stops you from enjoying life. Yeah. And so if something frightened me, I'd walk towards it rather than away from it.
I like that a lot because I agree with you that oftentimes fear keeps us stuck. But when we can accept it, embrace it, sometimes even dance with it, we can make our way through it much faster and more successfully. And I can see that you certainly have done that. So your story, part of your story is giving away your businesses and walking barefoot across Australia. I definitely want to hear more about that story.
I got lost at sea. I was about 60 miles off the coast of West Australia, of the 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐻𝐸𝐺 Islands, and my boat had a hole in the bottom of the hull, and it was sinking, and it actually sunk right down to the gunnels. And I hadn't checked the weather that morning, and the weather came in strong because there was a cyclone up north of West Australia, and it came in strong, and we were being hit by 30-foot waves every 5 minutes, and the boat was basically sinking, and there was 2 hammerhead sharks circling the boat. And so so it looked like death was inevitable because we're miles away from anyone. And I had my girlfriend with me at the time, who I ended up marrying. And my girlfriend, I looked across, she was in the water, I was in the water, we were both in the water, we were both suffering from hypothermia. And I looked across at her, and it just broke my heart open that I'd actually cost her life, because it was me that didn't check the weather. It was me that didn't do the right thing. And in that moment, I felt this unconditional love that I'd never felt before. And it was just so beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever experienced. And at that time, I was 33 years old. I'd retired from business some 5 years before. And I was doing very, very well. I had a multi-million-dollar company. But I realized that the armor that I'd put on to become a successful businessman was now in the way of me experiencing love. And I had had this taste of love, and I wanted more of it because it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever experienced. And so when I went and did a retreat in Italy for 5 months with a spiritual teacher. And when I came back from that, I realized I had this armor on, and I didn't want the armor on. So I walked into my companies and I gave my companies to my staff, along with 14 offices of furniture, all for nothing. And all the money that was owed to me, I gave to my debt collector so he could start his own debt collection company, which happened to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I walked out with nothing. I walked out as a total bum, took my shoes off, and started walking around Australia in search of my heart, because I felt that my heart was more important than any amount of wealth.
Yes. Did you find it?
Yeah, I did. And that changed my life completely. I ended up in soup kitchens because I ended up as a bum. I was looking to become a nobody going nowhere because the big somebody that I'd always been was in the way.
Yes. Yes.
And it was just nice to not know anyone and be a nobody going nowhere. No one had expectations of me. I didn't owe anything to it. I didn't have to try to be someone special. I was just a no one going nowhere, and I loved it. And in that openness, I found heart, which made me have an understanding of love. Love is perceived when we're open. It's not perceived truly when we're closed.
Yes. Yes. I agree with you completely. And it kind of reminds me of, the Japanese saying about how the cracks are the most beautiful because that's where the light shines in. And I'm misrepresenting the actual quote, but it's the hardening, the walls that we put up, the shrouds that we wear, the ways that we protect ourselves, that's what's actually keeping us from real connection, from real love. And so I really like what you did, and I'm wondering what then happened. Like, what did you do with this awareness? Did you immediately feel compelled to do something with it, to share it, or to just be with it?
You're right, I did. So what I realized was, as a businessman, and I was never ever going to go back to business because that wasn't something I wanted to do. I realized that I wanted to share and I wanted to take care of people, but I didn't have the skill set. So I went back to university and I trained as a naturopath and as a psychotherapist so I could have some skills to help people with. And then I started a psychotherapy naturopathic business.
How long did you do that?
10 years, well, 9 years, I think, 9 years altogether. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. You've had such a fascinating journey. Now, I'm in love with the stories, and so are my listeners. We love the story. That's how we connect. But they also really enjoy actionable things that they can take away. So I'm wondering, if someone doesn't necessarily want to give up all their belongings and walk barefoot, is there something that you can recommend, a practical path, a tip or a suggestion on how we can begin the process of awakening right where we are?
Yeah, you got to see what's in your way. If you can't see what's in your way, you can't proceed. It took me a while to realize that what was in the way was closure, defendedness. And what supported the perception of love was openness. And if I had have seen that before I walked around Australia looking for my heart, I may not have had to have walked around Australia looking for my heart.
Yeah.
And so I started practicing openness, no matter what. I dropped all defensiveness, no matter what. Any belief system that caused contraction in me and I went to defense, I started to undo the belief system because I wasn't interested in being without heart. I just loved it. I loved the beauty of the way of the heart, which is commonly called the noble path.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if someone wants to start with that, they have to begin by letting down their guard and becoming present with themselves.
Vulnerable.
Ah,
It's a horrible word, but that's it. Vulnerable.
yeah.
Instead of defended, open.
Yes. Yeah. It's a horrible word when you haven't done it a lot because it's scary, the unknown. But when you practice it, I actually think it's quite lovely.
Well, you get used to it after a while. In the beginning, it's a bit frightening to be vulnerable, but after a while, it just becomes ordinary. It becomes your way of being in the world,
Yeah.
vulnerable and open. And it's very sweet. It's
Mhm.
because when you're vulnerable and open, you are in touch with heart and you find you just want to take care of everything and everyone because that's how heart or love affects our minds.
We want to activate it. We want to serve. Now,
Mm.
I'm wondering from a male perspective, um, you know, do men keep their strength while opening their hearts? I mean, masculinity has a whole lot of connotations to it. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I go to Taoism on this one. There's the yin and the yang. And the
Mhm.
yang is the outgoing, which is more male, and the yin is the receptive, which is more female. To really be in touch with heart, we need to be more yin, which means you can be a tough guy, but you can't be contracted. You have to be open. And in openness, we find love. In openness, we are yin. In closure and outgoingness, we are yang. And most humans, male and female, are yang to a large degree nowadays.
Yeah, I believe that.
The women are becoming more emasculated, and the men also. And really, yin is so beautiful. When you're around someone who's operating from yin, you feel warm with them. You feel welcomed by them. When you're around someone who's really yang, there's like a clash or a banging into something.
Mm-hmm. There's a competitiveness. There's a little bit of aggression.
Competitiveness.
Yes.
There's a toughness.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about tough. It takes more courage to be open than it does to be closed. So someone who's genuinely tough is actually open and vulnerable, not closed and covered in tattoos.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. You know, I just recently, I believe it was just last week, I did a post on how there's a lot of how it's normalized to have hatred and division and anger, but in the workplace. But I would love it to be more normalized to talk of love and to come from love in service with our
Yeah.
peers, with our team members, with our customers, with our communities. I believe that that way of serving, I call it the humanity of leadership, is so very important to cultivate now more than ever, but always. So, what are your suggestions for a leader today who may have spent so many years working on or focusing on achievement and wants to, or competitiveness, and wants to add more love into the workplace without it being weird? Like, what do you suggest for them?
A leader needs to be more interested in taking care of people than taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
Rather, what's in it for you? What's in it for them? How can I take care of them in this arrangement? Whether we're talking world leaders, we're talking business leaders. How can I take care of them instead of me?
Mm.
In other words, not selfish. Basically, selfishness is the destroyer of the world as we know
Yeah.
it.
Agreed. Agreed. And actually, you found this, I've found this, many people have found this, is that when you are focusing outwardly on love and service, you get also so much more. That feeling that you mentioned when your heart broke open, that feeling of love that was almost overwhelming, that's a gift that comes when you're focusing first on that love and service. But coming from selfishness, you never get there. You never feel
No,
that.
no. Like I used to be a Christian. I'm now a Buddhist teacher, but there's only one sin. It's called selfishness. That's it. You get rid of selfishness and you become a beautiful person.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Mm.
You know, you talk about surrender, and some people view surrender as a weakness, but you speak of it as a strength. Can you share more about that?
It takes courage to surrender. It takes no courage to resist. It is only brave people that can surrender, not cowards. So in surrender, we find love. In surrender, we find connection with people. In resistance, we find hell. And we are responsible for the creation of our reality by the way we think. Surrender, which is brought about by the practice of acceptance and let go, creates such a beautiful world. Resistance, on the other hand, creates hell. And so we're responsible for the hell or the heaven we live in, depending on whether we're operating from acceptance and let go, which leads to surrender, or resistance, which leads to hell. It's up to us.
It is. There's a lot of freedom in that as well. So when, this is something I feel like I'm getting better at, but it is definitely a continual journey with me. But I may have this initial resistance and then remember, oh, I don't actually have any control here. It's completely an illusion of my own making. So I might as well surrender to what is. But how can I get to where it's a little more natural, where I don't have to think about it so much?
Yeah. The only way is practice, because if you're closed, if you're rigid and closed, that's your default pattern. And that would have taken years to develop. And to
Yeah.
develop a new pattern, a pattern of openness, may take a while of practice to get it to be a default pattern as well. And so I think it took me about 2 years of practice to be truly open, because in the walking around Australia barefoot for 4 years, I was practicing openness and I didn't have the pressures of business. It was quite good. I was a bum and I got to open up and open up and open up. And that started to become a default pattern, something that I didn't have to think about, something that was just naturally there. But what we're always fighting if we're trying to change is default patterning.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's true because, and sometimes I feel like it's not even my own. Sometimes I feel like you're not just letting go of your own habits and patterns. You're letting go of ones that were given to you, perhaps generationally. That's my feeling. What do you think?
Absolutely. One of the first patterns I decided to change in my own mind was the pattern of worry. And I'd picked that up from my mum. She was a master worrier. And I recognized that worry doesn't solve anything, it just hurts you. And so I was 19 years old when I picked that up and I saw it. I went, nah, to be a worrier, you actually have to be a victim to start with. And I didn't like that idea because that's a voluntary act. And so I stopped worry. Anytime worry appeared in my mind, I just stop it. By the time I turned 21, worry didn't appear anymore. 2 years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
What's that worth, though? What's that worth to not worry for the rest of your life about anything, to be okay with whatever is?
I mean, that's a gift. That's a gift, but it's a gift that you've given yourself. I mean, you have to work to get that gift, right?
I,
Um,
I had some teachers. I was taught this. I didn't come up with it by myself.
yes. So let's talk about that. You've had some wonderful teachers. I've had some wonderful teachers. I believe in mentorship. I believe in teachers and in seeking out the wisdom of others. If someone is looking to move toward the way of the heart, is there a simple step that they can start with and perhaps maybe it's reach out to you for some mentorship? Tell me what you would suggest for that pathway.
Well, first of all, you have to find someone who has heart, because there's a
Hmm.
lot of pretenders out there.
Yes, yeah.
And because anyone can learn the right hand motions, the right sound of the voice, the right words, and be very fraudulent. And so
Hmm.
this is when I talk about presence. If you can feel the person has heart, rather than actually see what they're doing and listen to what they're saying, if you can feel it, it's probably true.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because anybody can play the game of acting.
Yes.
And there's some
Especially in
master
today's world.
actors. Yeah, the
Yeah.
master actors are out there in the spiritual world.
Yeah. It's like, so I tell a story about surfing. When I was learning how to surf, I was terrible at it because I was looking at the wave before I started to paddle, right? I was looking for the wave. And an instructor told me that you're too late. If you're looking for the wave, you have to feel the wave under
Yeah.
the water and pulling on your feet. And I feel
Yep.
like that's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone puts out feelings, and if you're sensitive enough, you can pick it up, and you know what they're on about. Like when you get a bad feeling about someone, there's a good chance there's something not right.
Mm-hmm.
You get a good feeling about someone, there's a very good chance that something's right. And I tend to trust my feelings rather than what I see or what I think, because the feelings tend to be more accurate. And when we look at feelings, they're related to energy.
Yes.
What kind of energy is that person putting out? Is the energy real, or is it a fake? Are they really lovely, or are they really a rogue?
Yeah. You know, so I spent far too many years not listening to my intuition based on a family story that you don't even need. We can talk about it another time if you want. But I was suppressing my intuition. And I realized that anything bad that had happened in my life happened when I didn't listen to the voice. That
Mm,
little nudge of, "Ah, I feel like something's off here." Those
yep,
were the times when bad things happened.
yep,
But then when I started to listen to it, everything changed, right? Everything
exactly.
became so much clearer. Even though, like, if you're telling someone that, they may think you're crazy because it doesn't, like, what do you mean if you feel it? That's not clear. It's very clear.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely clear.
yeah.
To me, it is anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. For those who are maybe just kind of starting out, or maybe they're feeling lost or disconnected, is there something simple that they can do to get
Yeah.
them closer to their heart?
Well, if you get in touch with feelings, the most powerful feeling that we can feel from another person is actually anger. And if you
Mm,
start to register anger in people without watching them, just feeling it in them, you're starting to tune into the energy world. You're starting to tune into something finer that will show you the way. You can also detect sadness in people, because sadness actually betrays itself pretty readily, and so does fear. Fearful
mhm.
people transmit fear, and so you can feel it when you're around them. And you're starting now to get in touch with the energy world. And the energy world isn't the world of thoughts, it's actually a real world that exists. And the intuition you were talking about comes from being in touch with that world.
Yes. Yeah. So does silence help?
Oh, yeah. The more silent you are, the more you can feel, the more you can see, because the mind is a noisy machine. And when it goes silent, we pick up so much more.
I did my first day of silence, like full day of silence, not too long ago, about a month or two ago, and I need more. Like it was wonderful. It's so beautiful. So I think it's time for you to share with people a little bit about how they can reach you, how you might be able to connect with them, some resources that you have.
Okay. So I run a mystery school in West Australia, Perth.
Mhm.
Uh, Up in the hills, we have a wellness centre called Restful Waters. And
Oh,
I teach 7 times a week. And people can contact me through the website, which is vishrant.org. It's very simple, vishrant.org. And they'll end up talking to Tosh. And you've spoken to Tosh, and
yes.
he'll tell them what they need to do and what they can do and what they can't do.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure if you're listening right now and you're not able to write it down, we will put the links into the show notes for you, as well as a longer bio and some interesting information about Vishrant. Vishrant, you've been amazing. Your presence is very powerful. It's time. I can't believe it. I would love to spend more time with you, but it's time for the final parting words of wisdom. What do you want to make sure our listeners leave with today?
Love is the most important thing on this planet. There is nothing more important than love. And if you can find love, you are a wealthy person. Riches, money, property doesn't make you wealthy. Heart does.
That's beautiful and pure truth. Thank you so much. Listeners, did you love this? Of course you did. I'm sure you know some other people who love it, who would love it as well. So share it out, send it to friends, send it to family, post it if you like, and let us know what you think. We love to hear your comments, your questions for us, and those reviews. They're very important to us as well. So thank you for those. Until next time, Vishrant, thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. And next time, we'll have another amazing guest. So make sure to subscribe and join us again next week.
Thank you.